I'm going to read as follows. A taxing district other than the state that collects regular levies shall hold a public hearing on revenue sources for the district following year's current expense budget. The hearing must include consideration of possible increases of property tax revenues and shall be held prior to the time the taxing district levies the taxes or makes the request to have the taxes levied. In support of this hearing, we're going to start this evening with a presentation by Dan Baer, the Deputy Director and Chief Financial and Operating Officer for KRL, who will make a brief presentation on Kitsap Regional Library's revenue sources for 2023. If somebody walks in during that presentation, we don't have any attendees here this evening. But if somebody does come in and wish to make public comment, we will have them sign in and we will hear the public comment after that time. But first, we will start with Dan.
Thank you, Stephanie. I am pleased to present the draft 2023 budget this evening. The library budget is presented annually in two parts, operating and capital. The draft operating budget is presented to the library board in November tonight and adopted in December. By state law, the library must adopt by resolution authorizing property tax increases in terms of dollars and percent increase from the previous year to comply with RCW 84.55 and submit a tax certification letter to the county assessor by the end of November, requesting the adopted levy amount to be collected on behalf of the library. The Kitsap County Rural Library District is a junior taxing district and depends on approximately $17 million in annual property tax revenue to fund over 95% of its ongoing operations. For 2023, a tax rate of 28 cents per $1,000 of assessed property value generates this revenue. This funding is limited by Washington state law to a 1% annual increase and is capped at 50 cents per $1,000 of assessed value. After factoring in taxes from new construction, tax refunds, and canceled taxes, total tax revenue will increase by approximately $485,000 or 2.98% in 2023. The 2023 operating budget matches recurring and predictable revenue sources with the ongoing cost of operating the library. Savings accrued from the previous year's operations are not considered sustainable or recurring revenue sources, since future amounts are unpredictable. These past few budget years have been anything but normal, with higher than average savings being accrued. This temporary increase is a direct result of lower service levels and corresponding staffing. Funding ongoing operations with this unpredictable revenue source is not viable or a sustainable funding. Per board policy, year-end savings are transferred into capital reserves. The 2023 capital budget presented to the board in January identifies significant needs, which by nature are a one-time expenditure and are funded with the capital reserves. Capital projects address critical maintenance to buildings and regular updates to spaces, furnishings, and technology, ensuring responsible stewardship of the spaces the library has been entrusted with. 2023 increases in operating expenditures are mainly limited to compensation. Most staff will receive a 3% increase on their hiring anniversary date, along with a 3% COLA. An inflationary adjustment of $45,000 approximately is added to the materials budget. In addition to the capital reserve fund, the library maintains an operating reserve fund. By policy, this fund is maintained at 10 to 15% of the operating budget. These reserves provide a source of emergency funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Given that there are no persons who have come to the meeting and who wish to speak to the issue, I hereby declare the 2022 public hearing on revenue sources for the Kitsap County Rural Library District's preliminary 2023 operating budget to be closed. We will now take a 5-minute recess to transition between this hearing, and the regular board meeting this evening. And we will come back at 5:44. Thank you.
All right.
Oh, hang on, I've got to leave it out. Sorry, guys. Okay. Yeah, it's saying she has something. There we go.
I'm just gonna say that I can't hear you all.
Yeah, okay, good. That's you, Lisa. So do you want me to?
Well, you have to be careful because it should be the speaker. Then you've got.
Okay.
Like.
I know, I'll just, I wasn't clear setting it up.
Right.
Tammy, we can hear you on the one that you're on.
Okay.
You just can't talk at the same time.
Okay.
So if one of you talks at a time, we'll be able to hear you toward the speaker.
Okay. All right.
You want to hide there.
Okay.
So you can hear us okay now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Now that we have technology worked out. Good evening, everybody. I'm Stephanie George. I'm the president of the Board of Trustees, and I'd like to welcome you this evening to our regular monthly board meeting. Joining me this evening are my fellow trustees, Sue Whitford of Port Orchard, Eric Fong, Bainbridge Island, Marwan Cameron, who serves Bremerton, Kitsap, Gina Steiner is not with us this evening, as she is ill. So we also have members of the leadership team, Shannon Peterson, Dan Baer, Cindy Kyle, Lucretia Robertson, and Jason Driver are also in the room this evening. So we preceded this meeting with a public hearing, and we will now move into our regular agenda, including the mission statement, which Eric is going to read this evening.
Thank you. Inspiring our community to dream more, learn more, do more, and be more.
Thank you. And Jason, would you like to make further introduction?
Yes, also joining us besides our leadership team, we have Lisa Ruga, who's downtown Bremerton branch manager. She's going to have a presentation on the area library. Thank you. Yeah.
Are there any additions or changes to the meeting agenda? Nope. So we will move forward with public comment. We welcome public comment, but we don't have any this evening. So we will move past that agenda item into the consent agenda. All matters listed within the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion, Board of Trustees, with no separate discussion. Separate discussion is desired. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda by request. But in this consent agenda this evening are the minutes of the October 25th regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, the payment of November bills, payroll and benefits, and the blanket voucher. Additionally, we have library materials withdrawn from the collection to be declared surplus in November of 2,095 items, as well as a list of 195 items on a furniture and equipment list to also be declared surplus in November. Are there any items on the consent agenda drawing?
Yes, one item on the minutes for the October meeting, I'm listed as being in attendance
And unfortunately, I was traveling, which is just a minor change, so. Okay, so with that correction, I'll move to approve the consent agenda. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. You. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Great, thank you. Now moving into the presentation reports and briefing section of our board meeting. And we're going to start with Lisa.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Lisa. I think Jason said that I was the branch manager of downtown Bremerton, but I'm not sure. I am that. I'm also the manager of the public services support team that works out of our basement. I've been the coordinator of To the Library since 2018. And way back in the day, Shannon and I were librarians implementing the program. We're very attached to this program. It's a beautiful program, and I'm happy to introduce and also share what the program is to all of you. Let me share my screen real quick. And I'm not able to see all of you. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. You can also ask at the end. Just speak up because I'm not very good with chat and I don't see a chat function here. So I'll move forward. To the Library. So To the Library is a partnership program. It's one of our system-wide program initiatives. We have been implementing this program at all of our locations since approximately 2013. It's a partnership with our foundation who funds To the Library. It's also a partnership with 5 of our school districts from the north all the way to the south end of the county. And many service groups, local service groups like Kiwanis, a Rotary, they've supported and funded and contributed to the funding of To the Library since its inception back in 2007. What is this program? It's a field trip. This is one of my favorite pictures of To the Library. I think it gives the essence of what it is. And 3rd graders come and they have a wonderful time at the library in brief. But it's more than that. It's about connecting with staff. It's about developing a personal relationship with the youth services librarian. They learn about the library, they learn about the resources that we provide. And at some locations, they receive their very first library card, and some they learn about their student account and what they can do with that. They also get a book to keep. This is really important for 3rd grade in particular. It's a pivotal year in their school career. So along with the book, they get a superhero bag. It's essentially a gift bag. The book is the most important part, but there's lots of library swag like bookmarks. We've got pencils. We've got a great guidebook that our communications department produces. You can see we have an old Inspire in this particular image. I didn't put that there on purpose, Marwan, but there you are. You pop up all places. But they get all this information about the library, and it's a gift that they can take away. But that book is the most important part, and that is the positive intervention that the library can have on 3rd grade students, and that we're promoting reading at a pivotal year. And so this is why 3rd grade reading is so important. It's a cradle to career milestone. So many of you know that the library partners with Kitsap Strong. We both are involved in a a nationwide initiative called Strive Together, and they identify these milestones in a student's career. You can see early grade literacy. If you narrow it down, it's third grade reading. And third grade reading is so important because in fourth grade, students get tested for their reading capacity. So it's a big milestone. It's a transition for students who were at one point learning how to read, and now they're reading to learn. And students who struggle with reading in third grade have more likelihood of struggling throughout their career, all the way up through high school, and even affecting their career attainment. So we want to like support this milestone and support third grade reading, and we've been doing so for well over a decade. It's also about good relationships. So this image is from the Search Institute. The Search Institute is it's a guiding factor for third graders to the library. If some of you are familiar, they've developed the 40 developmental assets for youth. They've also have a framework that they've designed to have good relationships with the youth. And if you can see all these items: express care, challenge growth, provide support, share power, and expand possibilities. This is something that is enacted and implemented by our librarians and our staff in this program. Really, we're there to build relationships and connect with students that we often do not see in the library. That's what's so wonderful about this program, is that we reach people who typically do not come to the library. So it also supports a more equitable access in our community to library services. And we get to play and have fun in the library. These images are of some of the things that occur, but basically it's a story time, it's a tour of the library, it's a review of databases, but we're there to connect and show the youth that we are good grown-ups in their community. And we know that it's not just a student's parent or immediate family that can support in this, that we can all do our part in the community to help kids thrive. And the library is definitely part of that. I have cited some resources for you all that if you want to explore more, but that's to the library in a snapshot. So I'm going to stop sharing. And for those of you who haven't seen to the library, I'm excited about this school year because we are going to return to doing in person for a lot of to the library. The last couple of years, we've been doing virtual adaptations or just visiting the school. And I think where the real magic happens is when our staff connect with students and they get the experience of being in the library. Sometimes like you can't know a place unless you're there, and you can't envision yourself as belonging in a place unless you get there. And so if you have an opportunity to observe or be a part of to the library within your service areas, I recommend checking it out. It is by far my favorite library initiative. I am biased, but it's a good one, and we reach a lot of people that we wouldn't otherwise. All right, questions?
So Lisa, you speak about being able to reach a number of kids through the program because they're bused there. What do you do next after that? Or how do you know, or maybe you don't know, it's just planting seeds that that introduction and connection?
What do we do, like literally in the field trip after they arrive on the bus, or?
It's really about, if it's really a point of accessibility, how do do you have a way of knowing how many of them come back later, or it's a good faith effort?
It's Stephanie, that's hard to track, and we haven't really tracked those statistics. I can say, like, anecdotally and based on observation, like, some students are so eager after their field trip that they come back that day with their family. And so that can be very powerful. And I know that many of our staff have relayed that this is something that occurs. But we've never tracked that. I would also say, like, when I imagine to the library and its growth in the future, I really want to work with the public services team to figure out a way to get more input from, at least from our teachers who participate, to see how we might be able to iterate. We've been through quite a bit of change and transition in the last 3 years, but prior to that, we were making good progress and heading towards like getting more input about the experience. Outside of students who participate, like, the stats that we track are students that come to the library, and that same number means that they've received a book. So hopefully there's intervention there, and that we're supporting their reading, which is the most important thing. But yeah, like, that connection is equally important. And we don't have that data.
I would say though, Stephanie, your point around planting the seeds is really, really important with this, because this program, I think part of why it's been so magical is it allowed us to develop kind of strong, ongoing relationships with school. So they know what's coming. Here we are again. This is our touch point. So it gives us that in with the districts, and our librarians are in the school quite a bit for kind of more like one-off purposes, like a database overview, or, in my report, I talked about Kayla going to lunch, taking MS, like things like that. And this is the seed planter. So the idea is, like, us, we're not scary. We're not. Nice, thank you. This is right who we are and what we do. And to Lisa's point, like, we're good grown-ups that care about your success. And God, the gift of, Lisa and I got to start this in Port Orchard in 2007. And the gift of seeing a kid in junior high being like, oh, I remember you from blah, blah, blah. And then high school, and that tracks over time, and it's amazing to see kids remember that. I'm frankly surprised that they do, but school field trips are a big deal, especially in third grade. Yeah, and now. So that's hopefully it's a seed starter that kind of continues to build as we go through school. But I would love to see. I think this is an important touch point, and how do we do that in middle school? How do we do that in high school? Because those transition years are the most challenging for you. Know that.
Yeah, Lisa, thank you so much for the presentation. I actually, I appreciate Stephanie's question. I think that, this is a great excuse to get in touch with the schools, but also to be able to track and ensure that, there's no doubt that relationship support, but being able to track the success and to make sure the efforts are, are to show improved success. In addition to, the follow-ups afterwards, also understanding, the number of third graders who are visiting the library for the first time every year, is that number shrinking, those first time visits? Because if it's shrinking, that means they're getting to the library earlier, and other efforts are working in different ways. So I think putting some metrics to this would be incredibly helpful to continue to support the system and show how it's working.
Thanks, Eric.
Lisa, I don't have a question, I just have a comment for you. Really appreciate the continuity of service even during COVID. During staff day, your team was talking about, librarians walking around with iPads, so the kids can still have that virtual experience of being in the library. That is so important. I really appreciate the meeting and your presentation, so I want to make sure I brought that up. Just love that innovation.
Thanks, Marwan. I caught most of what you said, that the librarians that you talked to Kirsten and she talked about taking the iPad. And there were lots of like creative ways to connect with schools during the pandemic. Like her approach was to do a live stream and show the branch and talk a little bit about the library. Some of our branches made pre-recorded videos as per request from the school. And some of our schools, they weren't able to even do that. And so we were able at least to drop off the superhero bags and give the students a book to keep. So lots of different iterations, but that in-person experience is quite wonderful. And so I'm looking forward to that. Eric, I think with the metrics, like there are some things that we can try and track. And so I think starting with the teachers who have been participating and kind of seeing where the program would need to go would be really good. In the past, I think in terms of determining like whether a student had been, we were able to see if a student had a library card or not. Now that's a bit different because we have 2 districts that have student accounts. And so everyone has that account. And so we have to really directly ask the teachers and hopefully that they will engage in that. But they're a good audience to start with to try to build a little bit more robust data for the library. Did I answer everyone's question and hopefully respond to comments in a coherent way?
Lisa, I was just going to add that as important and as excited as you are to see these kids, it's also really important for the kids because if they have older brothers and sisters or if they talk to other kids, they all know that this is coming when you're in the 3rd grade and they look forward to it. And I'm sure during COVID, there was lots and lots of 3rd graders that were just terribly disappointed that there wasn't this big field trip because it's kind of like a rite of passage for these kids and they get so excited about being able to come. So thank you for all that you do.
Thank you too, Susan. One thing that I was like compiling the data, I thought that things were a bit more dire during the pandemic. I was like, oh, things really dropped that first year, and we didn't connect as well. But the data sheet that you have in the report, like we actually have had a really good engagement and participation, even considering just the difficulties that the schools were having the last 2 years and the constant transition for their students. They were still engaging for a large part in most of our school districts. So that made me feel really hopeful just looking at that data. And as long as we can continue to keep the momentum and get people excited, both teachers and students, about the in-person experience, I think like we can just keep on building. Or rebuilding, I should say.
Big endeavor. Good. Lisa, thank you. Very lovely. Nice job. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, we have board member reports. I'll start with Eric. If there's
Thank you. I actually have no update. I was ill for most of last month, so I was not up very much.
yeah.
I'm looking forward to getting back into it next month.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? You could travel. I don't have room for it. Sorry. That's why I brought Ireland or Nashville. I don't know. Either. Marwan? You want to do this for here?
We wanted to acknowledge all the libraries during this time. Some of the teachers at home all frequently. So it's so important for our house to have a place to go during the day. I think this is going to be a seasonally cold winter. Nothing in December yet. It's probably going through December, probably March. So I just appreciate the work, especially for the MLK Library and the work they do to accommodate and have that be their space also. So just shout out to all the staff and all the libraries. They serve that out.
Well said.
We had a finance committee meeting preceding this meeting. Sue, would you like to report on that, please?
Sure. Dan talked a little bit about the current financials, which are good. We received the funds from the October 31st property tax. That's the second big chunk for the year. And April and October when the property taxes come in. Let's see, we also talked about the audits. They have been having weekly meetings, but those are wrapped up, and the exit conference will be held next month, probably the first week of December. Let's see, and then we talked a little bit about budget projections for 2023, and those look good that we will be in balance, but with our revenues are expected to match the expenditures. So that was it.
Thank you. With that, Dan, would you like to comment further with the finance report?
Not really.
Truly, it's always good when they're boring. Anybody have any questions for Dan? All right. Well, moving right along to Jason and the library record.
All right, good evening, everybody. So for my report, continue to get out into the community. So as you know, most of my travels take me about doing presentations and meeting community folk, and that certainly has not slowed down. So continue to do that towards the end of the year. And my efforts to get to know the community and to form relationships, and some of them end up being continuing partnership relationships, and some are new partnership relationships, and so I'm happy to do that. Moving to HR, we've had a couple new hires in October. Brittany Cernan, library assistant at Silverdale, Cindy Calvert, library assistant also at Silverdale, and Sandra Menifee, who's a library assistant at Bullfog. We've had several employee changes, and most of them have been changes in responsibilities and titles. Lucretia Robertson had responsibilities of being the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, as well as Human Resources. Mike Rose had responsibilities of Director of Information Technology, as well as Facilities Maintenance. Dan Baer, who continues to be our CFOO and is also Deputy Director, and then Shannon Peterson, Deputy Director of Public Services. And so those were our most notable changes in October. Moving to all staff, I wanted to ping over to Lucretia if she had any comments about All Staff Day. First of all, I'm sure she does at All Staff Day. As you know, most of you participated on that day of October 20th. And so it was a virtual event that was held in all of our locations, and we had the opportunity for leadership and board support staff in the morning, including seeing the keynotes and to participate in having lunch with staff. So that was great. We were highlighted by our keynote speaker, who's Dr. Michael Stevens, who's a professor of the School of Information at San Jose State University. And we have a presentation in the morning also about Whole Mind Strategy Groups, Eric Mead, who's leading us through our strategy work. And also the afternoon, we had breakout sessions which feature bystander intervention in the workplace, languishing, flourishing, and your mental health. We had an AWC benefits fair and a presentation on intellectual freedom from one of my colleagues, Dr. Cameron Meredith, who's the director of the Jefferson County Rural Library District in Washington State. And then we finished the day with our annual staff awards and recognition, celebrating years of service and work achievements. And I also wanted to take the time to acknowledge one of our leadership team members here who celebrated 40 years, Ms. Tammy Jeffries. So I wanted to congratulate her on her work. And Lucretia, did you want to add anything about All Staff Day?
I think, so the only two things that I will add, Jason mentioned bystander intervention and intellectual freedom. Those were trainings offered to staff virtually, and we'll continue to do those next year. Bystander intervention will be a required training for all staff in keeping with our diversity, equity, inclusion focus. Some of the issues that are covered in that training are really aligned with that intention. And then intellectual freedom is for new employees, but we're offering it as well for employees who want a refresher on maybe some changes to the law around access of information that might impact the way we serve our community. But above all, we know that the philosophy of libraries is that we ensure access to all material without, any judgment or any barriers as much as possible. The only other thing that I will add is that we collected feedback from staff about their experiences with Staff Day. And for those of you who recall, we've had Staff Day for many years out of Kiana Lodge. And the feedback is mixed, like, yay, we want to be back in Kiana, we want to be outside, we want to get the view. And then, of course, there are staff who this is really convenient to be able to access it virtually and to feel comfortable, so to speak, with my team and at my location. So the leadership team will be talking about next year, where do we do it, how do we do it, can we do some type of mix, full day, part day, I don't know, but we'll be thinking about some solutions to ensure we have a good opportunity to learn and grow together, but also that we're being good stewards of our funds and not just, reserving places. So outside of that, I think Staff Day went well. It was different, but it went well.
Thanks, Lucretia. Continuing on, we had 2 stars of the month for the month of October. They were Karina Langsgrad, who's our Adult Services Librarian in Pulsebo, and also Jackie Wilson, who's the Library Associate at the Puerto Rico branch. So both nominees will be receiving and making a difference. Lemonade card with $10 Starbucks gift card. So congratulations to both Karina and Jackie. And then wellness. So as you know, Carol is always engaging staff in wellness activities on a monthly basis. October's wellness activity was the Roam the Globe Challenge, which was the goal was to create healthy habits and exercise every day. And so staff were able to sign up with the Catlight app, and they were able to track their activity with the paper activity journal. And then moving on to public services. So I want to actually turn part of this over to Shannon, because I really want to acknowledge the work that Donna Nelson, who's our public services supervisor and currently in branch manager of Silverdale Library, has also celebrated 40 years in this organization. And as she transitions to the next phase of her life, she'll be retiring in December. And I just want to pay deference to Shannon, because she's worked most closely with her, and have her say a couple words about Donna.
Yeah, I mean, like our TME, Donna has done all the things in our system over time. All kinds of frontline positions, multiple opportunities to fill interim roles, longtime public services supervisor, one of those people that you can throw her in and she will just quietly do her thing beautifully. I've been so grateful after Ashley Brooksmith left this summer. I've been so grateful to have Donna in this kind of final interim capacity. I don't know that she was that excited to have that, but I'm very, very grateful that she did. She just keeps things moving beautifully, and I've loved hearing her voice more in this in the hiring process for the next regular manager. She's talked about how much work that she and past managers put into building that team. It's a great team at Silverdale. You've probably seen that on her visits and the opening. They're just flexible, dynamic, just a beautiful team. And Donna's played a really huge role in that. So she'll be leaving us on December 1st. We're having a very early morning get together to celebrate the time with kind of breakfast and some words. So 8 to 9 a.m. We have a captive audience that morning with training happening. Welcome to attend. I'm also collecting video messages, so you can send a message that way as well. You're not sure.
Thanks. Yeah, Silverdale has been neat to see all the staff really engage the community, and in particular the middle school and high school at CK. And also, Kayla's been a big part of that as the youth and teen services librarian, actually. She's done really good work in building partnerships on that campus. As you know, coming into this relationship, that was our hope, to really solidify stronger partnerships, seeing that the campus is right up the hill. And Kayla's done a really good job of doing that, partnering and doing good work, not only in Silverdale Library, but actually up in the spaces in the middle school and high school. So very proud of her work. And then, in general, proud of all of our work out in engaging the community in partnerships. Really wanted to also highlight the work of public services support team and doing a wonderful job with the community learning internship program. As you know, you had a presentation from Megan and Shelby. Is that last month now or 2 months ago? And so really wanted to call out their work. And Shannon, did you want to highlight any more about their work in that sphere?
I think you've heard many things. We're excited to get started this year. Megan and Shelby are starting outreach now. So we're kind of gearing up to kind of build awareness and partnership with kids in hopes that we'll bring in some new interns in Great.
Thanks. And then just to follow up on our partnership with Graduate Strong regarding our financial aid outreach, that's been really successful. And so calling out the work of Librarian Kathleen Kondak right here at Sylvan Way, who's done a really good job, and Jose Castro as well, to partner up to really engage the community and getting financial aid completion happening. And so, as you know, financial aid completion rates in this part of the county have been particularly low. So just really want to call out the work of both of those staff members. And then lastly, just programming. I had a really wonderful opportunity to participate in my first Halloween parade here at Sylvan Way last month. It was a great opportunity to read stories right in this room. I read one story and I wanted more, and then we participated in our annual Halloween parade. And so just really want to call out all the staff who participated in that, and the kids and families are really grateful. It had been a long time since they were able to come in and take part in that activity. So it was good to have them in person again. We took a lot of photos and kids went home with a bunch of treats. So really want to call out that. In terms of facilities and IT, nothing much. The most notable thing is that our McKinstry project is just about at close. I think we finally got the roof on. We're just got a few ins and outs, but for the most part, the work is done. The switchgear replacement has been fully completed. The roof is fully on. We've got a few things working with our HVAC that got knocked out, but other than that, completion. The project has been completed, so really happy about that.
I feel like we should clap or something.
So glad. We still got a few things.
When they kind of cause an issue, it seems unfair.
Well, true, and that's why I say almost complete. Exactly. With information technology, the planned Bibliocommons website transition, we pushed that out to May. We just felt like we didn't need to rush that project. We heard from various staff members that they felt rushed and, felt a lot of strain with other competing things happening in the library, required trainings, pending holidays and that sort of thing. So there's no rush to actually have that done by March 1st. So we pushed the clock on that until May 1st. It allows us all an opportunity to breathe a bit more. We've had a number of staff transitions too. So I think it's important that when staff tell you, you listen. And so we'll move that to May, and with the hopes that we'll design more robust trainings around, acclimating to Biblio. And as well as we're also implementing a new system in-house, moving from Polaris to Leap. And so essentially moving from a desktop version of our circulation applications to more of a web-based version. So that will allow us a little bit of opportunity to push that into, as opposed to the end of this year, we'll move that into February. So it gives us all an opportunity to breathe a bit, stretch for the holidays, and come back and get to work. So moving on to collection and technology services. And so Reader's Advisory and leading training, that's one of the trainings that's been happening in our branches. And so those activities have been happening, and we had our Reader's Advisory training that was held on October 27th. And we had staff from across the system participate in that. And then the next session is certainly scheduled for February. And then moving to the foundation, we had a wonderful opportunity opportunity to participate in the Foundation Board of Directors retreat, which was November 4th. It was a great time. We had an opportunity to discuss goals and plans for 2023. And I'll let Wendy speak more about that, but I actually want to lift Wendy up for hosting Coffee with the Directors. So it was a really great opportunity to connect with funders in a personal way at Silverdale. And so the object was to not only have coffee with folks who were really, involved in philanthropy here, but to also just do a presentation and talk about our goals, where the library currently is, and where we see the library in the future. There's really an opportunity to have a presentation and have personal time with funders. So I thought the day was well received. We had quite a few people in attendance. I'll let Wendy talk more about that and other foundation happenings.
Yeah, I thank you, Jason, for saying yes. This was our first attempt to have this kind of very, somewhat informal, kind of loosely structured opportunity to just invite donors to engage with our library director. And Jason said yes, and it was amazing. What we heard afterwards was just how, first of all, honored they were to be given this opportunity to hear directly from Jason and, kind of get FaceTime with him, if you will, but also very excited to have Jason at the helm of our organization, and really thrilled with his vision and direction thus far. So even though it's been, 9 months now? So a lot has happened, and a lot, a great vision going. So really, really amazing, great feedback. And we actually had, this is new news for Jason too, but we've had 2 donors now reach out with intentions to make gifts. So also from the perspective of really continuing to be able to share impact with them and keep them engaged in what the library is doing and continue to be supporters. It checked all the boxes. So thank you, Jason, for leaning in, and we look forward to doing it again,
I think so. We'll have several events planned like that in 2023, so we're really excited about how that will show up.
Yeah,
It's nice. It's coffee in a small group.
Yeah.
really, yeah.
In addition to getting funders together for other small events in our locations after hours, so we have some loose plans around making that happen in 2023. In the absence of a one big signature event, I think it's important to get folks together in a smaller space and more intimate way.
I think sometimes they like it better.
Yeah. More communication, ask more questions, right? Well, you can, and not personal better. And I think we saw that with coffee with the director. It was an opportunity also when the presentation was over to have people really stay behind, and they had questions and wanted to have further meetups. It was really it's important to have those personal engagements with folks. So
Yeah, so I can talk a little bit about the event kind of ideas. So definitely those types of events as we go into 2023, where we're bringing them into our buildings and giving them after hours and giving them opportunity to have FaceTime, and keeping it from the ROI perspective. It's more of a stewardship event. It's not this elaborate, kind of very expensive, what you might traditionally see at a really big fundraising event. The other thing that we really want to do as we move into 2023 is some kind of more of community block party events. So ways that we engage the community in library programming, that there's library we had a fun time doing the block party when we were launching the community campaign. And so a similar model to that, where there's engagement with library. There's also, foundation table, but really it's free. Anybody can come, and we are there to engage the community and the library. And the block party was really great because, well, it was also really hot.
really hot, like over 100 degrees that day. But
Surprisingly, still.
still, yeah, it was really great because we were, you know, it was just amazing. All of the, you know, folks in the community just like, I saw this was going on and I just wanted to check it out and tell me about the library. And so it really was a cool way to interact with the community who didn't know us yet. So I think those are great ways for the foundation to use the resources that have been provided, you know, that have been given to the library. We're kind of getting opportunity to engage community and have library.
The library will be closing in 30 minutes at 7 p.m. The computers, copiers, and printers will shut off in 25 minutes. Thank you.
Thank
That
you.
was so well. That really was done well.
That was. Thank you, Wendy.
Yeah.
So it was a great time. And lastly, I wanted to just simply say thank you. You know, this time of year, moving into Thanksgiving, it's always a time to reflect and to think about your family and, you know, say thanks for all that they are to you. And I just want to simply say thank you to this entire body here for making me really feel welcome in this county and welcome on this job. Most notably our board of trustees for making that transition pretty smooth, and to my leadership team who's bent over backwards to really make sure that, you know, I've gotten whatever I've needed and to really, you know, to really make me feel comfortable and welcome here and still in the education process. Then to the community, really in advance of Native American Heritage Day, which this library has always taken time to celebrate and to recognize. We are off this Friday, and it's going to take the opportunity really to acknowledge and you know, pay deference to our indigenous communities here. Most notably, you know, we have partnerships with Port Campbell's Tribe and our little Boston Library, and it's been a really foundational partnership over the years. So I really want to, you know, pay deference to Port Campbell's Tribe and you know, Suquamish tribes for their partnership and education with us. You know, we've had the opportunity to speak to both tribal councils, and you know, I think it's a real opportunity to pledge more in terms of education and growth with both tribes. And we certainly endeavor to do that through our DEI work. So most notably, I'm going to give thanks to both tribes and to all those on this November 25th. And then lastly, and certainly not less important, all of our staff members who make this place go. There are a lot of them, and there are a lot of stories that are trying to highlight those in our weekly messages, and sometimes try to highlight individual staff. And I haven't gotten around to everybody, but I eventually will. But want to acknowledge all the folks, our custodians and facilities crew. We might have heard vacuum out there earlier. I'm sure that was James probably out vacuuming. He's probably the hardest working person here at the library, and so he really is proud of his work and really takes pride in it. And so without folks like that, we wouldn't even have a place to open and have services. He just does it without, you know, a lot of fanfare. So want to call out James specifically because he always makes sure that he says hello, and he's, you know, making sure that he's taking a lot of pride in just, you know, keeping things clean. And sometimes folks like that are overlooked, but I certainly don't want to overlook James, the entire facilities crew, entire technical services crew, collections crew, all of our substitutes. I've met a number of them in our locations, and you know, they've all been warm and provide a lot of our support. When folks have call outs or, you know, have to be out on FMLA or any other reasons, our substitutes have stepped up to the table. Our library assistants, our library associates, all of our folks, you know, in public services, the support team, the public services supervisors, who are just really, you know, have been instrumental in management in our locations, have really risen to the challenge, particularly through COVID. You know, it's been a difficult time in the last couple of years here at the library, and we want to really acknowledge the public services supervisors for their superhuman work and kind of being the glue and the partners to the managers in those locations. So, and our branch managers, of course, who, you know, manage our facilities, manage the staff, manage the partnerships. You know, it's a multifaceted job, and so really want to give thanks to them because That's the essence of what a library is, all of those people. And then, of course, all of our internal teams here and our support teams, our marketing and communications team. You know, we've got, you know, beautiful publications that come out, and, you know, it's because of that team of beautiful communications that go out on our website. That takes a little bit of work to do on a daily basis. And, you know, I see some of the comments on Facebook where patrons have chimed in, you know, to say thanks, or to say, hey, I attended this program. And so those teams keep us together. Of course, our foundation team, our director's office, Tammy and Autumn, who keep things going behind the scenes, including this meeting, and keep all of our public records happening and my schedule together. And then our, you know, entire leadership team. And so, you know, our Deputy Director of Public Services, Shannon, our Deputy Director of Finance, our COO, CFOO, Dan Fair. I know. And then Director of IT and Facilities Maintenance, Mike Rossi's not here, unfortunately, and it's also Jeannie Allen, Director of Strategy and Communications, couldn't be here tonight as well. And I mentioned Tammy, who's our Executive Assistant in the Director's Office in Autumn, and as well as Lucretia Robertson, who heads up DEI and heads up Human Resources. So I know it takes a while, but I want to call everybody out by name because it really takes a whole bunch of people to run this library system. So it's not just me, and obviously it takes all of us to make the library a great place. And lastly, the board of trustees. So thank you for all of you all for your partnership, and I wish you all a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday with your families. And I'll have plenty of food left over if anybody wants. And that includes my report. Any questions?
Yeah, what time's the leftover?
Yeah, you can just bring your, you know, carry over plate. No, seriously, thank you to everyone. And it's been, I know it's only been 9 months. We've got to close the year out, but it's been wonderful. It just felt like the appropriate time to say thank you. So thank you. And any questions or comments about my report?
I wish we would have given you a mileage tracker on your car, something to really reflect how you, I mean, we, as a board, I think one of the things that was really important to us, in addition to being able to provide tremendous support to the team here, was really to make sure you got out in the community. And I think, wow, you have exceeded the, I think any expectations. And frankly, what's fun is we hear comments. I mean, I hear comments of people like us. Great job, but great job to everybody, because you're all out there. You're here and you're everywhere.
Yeah, I agree. Echoing Stephanie's comments, I think one of the great things is your openness and willingness to acknowledge all the great people around you. That is really inspiring as a leader, as you were enabling and empowering your team. Another thing, excuse me, that I really like about your weekly emails always start with the journey continues. So the journey continues. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope it is not discontinued. So well, I mean, that's the message. We're all on a journey. So it is our journey. So and I hope staff and leadership in the entire, you know, library feels that we're all doing it together. Just never want it to be a separation in terms of, you know, obviously we have separate positions and we have separate teams, but we're all have the common goal of, you know, serving the public. And so I just don't want us all to ever forget that. And so, you know, sometimes we get mired in a lot of other things, but at the end of the day, it's the patrons that I see out in the community. We're really, really grateful we have library services. And I'll talk more about this next month, just really quickly. We should put together a presentation for us at Olympic College, and it was Leadership Kids that day at Olympic College last Friday. So we had the opportunity to both present about what the library was, and then the attendees got to see 3 different stations. They got to see Meg Beatty-Stowe do a presentation on early learning. They got a chance to see Leslie Caldwell talk about Collection HQ. And then they also got a chance to see a third presentation. They got, who else did they see? Leah. Yeah, Leah Burbridge did a presentation on STEM in the library. And so from that, I think one of the things that really struck me afterwards was we had a time to really engage the community and figuring out what their thoughts were about the library in the future. We had a chance to do a little bit of strategy work to really sort of, get some input. And a lot of the commentary was just about how much they already love using the library. Probably, 90% of the attendees had library cards already, and really just couldn't say enough about all of the places that they were connected to and the people that they were connected to. And so, that's what it's really about. It's that if folks are already, feel a strong connection at Kitsap, and there's still people out there that we can build relationships with. And so that's really the message, is that our journey continues because we're out there doing it together. So thank you, everybody.
Well, I wish we were done, but
We're not.
we'll have to carry on here. So, next item on the agenda is correspondence, but we don't have any of that either. So we are moving into new business. First item of new business is the need to establish a nominating committee. This is the time of year we ask a couple of trustees to volunteer to think about leadership of the group for the next year, including committees in terms of where people are wanting to serve. So I'm looking for a couple of volunteers, and I'm looking at Sue to start. I short time, so I feel like she owes us.
I'm happy to be on the nominating committee.
Good. Is there any?
Okay.
Great. Good. Thank you. That was easy. Good. So, and Sue, and the intent is to bring back a slate for December for election. Is that right, Tammy? And because then it takes place in January.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So also be thinking, because I imagine there'll be some phone calls happening. So be thinking also about where you've been serving on committees, or you have interest in other committees. Just think about your own meaningful engagement with the service, and then we'll have you catch up with Gina as well. Very good. That is great. And now we are moving to the preliminary, I'm going to go through this again. The preliminary 2023 operating budget is on here again.
That is just on the agenda for you to review, but I'll go over and any questions between now and our December board meeting. Email me or Jason, and we'll try to answer that.
That's good. Moving next to a resolution number 20. No, I can't say this. 2022-09. This is a resolution that does correlate to the operating revenue projection that allows us to increase the taxing district's regular levy from what was levied the previous year. Dan, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, as I said in the speech before, and just continuing on Jason's theme, our journey continues, and we need this time to continue. By the state law, the library must adopt this resolution authorizing the property tax increase. The format of this resolution is in the format the county assessor's office wants it in. It's an odd format to me because it doesn't cover all the math that's in this, but the follow-up agenda item with the tax levy certification, if you add those two numbers together on that, you will get the total that's in the budget for this.
And I
This,
think that's small about the 11.2 is a preliminary budget, operating budget.
right, that was when I was saying that they
Yeah,
have this
okay.
information on at this point.
Okay.
So the tax levy certification will basically, that number matches to what's in the proposed budget for the revenue source for tax revenue. This resolution is just to get it in the form that the assessor office wants from us. And they need it by the 30th, so I would love to get a signature from everyone tonight. Bring all, and that way we can get a file from the assessor's office.
Okay, but before we sign that, we actually have to.
I'd like to have a motion.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so
I move that we approve resolution 2022-09, increasing the taxing district regular levy. Is that right? Yeah. From what it was levied the previous year, I guess there's more to that. Okay.
So, there's a second?
Second.
Okay, are there any further questions or discussion about this resolution? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Given that this is really a two-part action, but we're now going to consider the tax, so the tax levy certification, and describe how these two things go together. So again, we'll look for a motion for that tax levy certification, which then allows Jason to sign the letter of certification that goes along with the resolution. So I look for a motion to approve that resolution.
Motion to approve the 2023 tax levy certification.
Second, great, thank you. Any further questions on that piece of business? Okay, hearing none. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Both of those pieces of
The jury will.
the jury will continue to be able to access appropriate revenue for this operating budget. Moving then to a policy, the collection development library policy, which is part of the policy handbook. Jason, who looks to be on tap for giving an overview of that policy.
Yeah, just really briefly, our collection development policy really is just provide a general guide and framework for our selection and maintenance of our materials. And
Good evening again.
I'll for announcement.
May I please have your attention? The library will be closing in 14 minutes at 7 p.m. The computers, copiers, and printers will shut off in 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know who she is, but I can listen to her voice all day long. Go ahead.
Reading words, right? I'll just start it over in case we got lost in the announcement. So really, just for the collection development policy, the general purpose is to provide a general guide and framework for maintenance of our materials. And so it really just emphasizes our commitment to intellectual freedom and unrestricted access for patrons, and it just offers staff guidance and informs the public about our general selection criteria.
So is this new?
This is not new now.
It's because a lot of times we see kind of either an edited version and.
Yeah, so we have procedures behind this policy
Okay.
that we've then cleaned up.
Yeah.
And so we've submitted those.
Yeah.
And then those have been approved. And so this is just a general, our general policy for the public.
All right,
But not the tracked.
yeah, so we're not
Right.
reviewing track.
Yeah.
So, does anybody have any more questions about this policy? It's not very long, so.
That's pretty short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So given a chance to kind of having read it before, I'll entertain a motion to approve this policy.
Motion to approve the policy.
Yeah, there's a lot of work here between. Are there any further discussion or questions about the policy? Hearing none. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor of approving this policy, say aye. Aye. And now we move into the emergency closure library policy, part of the employee manual. Appreciate it looks like you were doing a lot of work.
With the emergency closure one.
Yes, well, your name's on the.
Yeah, it was a lot of.
This one has a lot of track changes in it. Would you like to give a summary overview to intent?
So our primary intention with any change, of course, Jason's already mentioned this, is to clarify what our policy in regards to this particular topic. And so our intention with this was to clarify, for example, what is meant by emergency closure, when would we close, and what would be our response in that regard? Because there's an impact to staff, there's always a conversation with the union regarding impacts to staff, so that's why you see some of the markup, and that's also why you see some of the clarification in the language. If, you know, what it might mean to me might be different to someone else, so. At this point, I think we've clarified the instances when we might be closed, so outside of just weather related. We know what it's like when a building does the thing that the building does, and so sometimes we have to shut down because of the building, or for some other reason, we might have to shut down. So we clarified that in the language. We have the union's agreement to the final language there. And then I think the track changes is included in that document, so you see what was captured before. The significance is in the language change, not in our response or actions taken as part of the closure.
And it really looks like, as you said up front, more clarity about how do we define emergency
Right, it
for the
really,
purposes of closure.
exactly, the most salient thing I think is, like, what is a planned closure versus emergency closure? Really making that clear to staff. Talking to our union partners about that too, just and to walk through the impacts for staff on a change like this. Because we've had instances where branches have had to close due to, you know, emerging issues that, you know, either were, you know, issues where there were impacts because of things that were happening in the building that affected some staff versus others. We've had things like parking lot resurfacing that has been done where you could have some off-gassing. We've had roof work done here, and then you have inclement weather, right? And so when that happens, how do we operate? You know, when we plan to close, then, you know, that's different. And then we give staff different options depending on which situations happen. And so in cases of sometimes planned closures, of course, then the obligation would still be that, you know, you have a work-based plan. So we have other opportunities for staff to either take benefit time and or work at another location, having worked that out with their supervisors. And then versus emergency closures, to say, you know, God forbid, an act of nature happens to the building, and obviously it's unforeseen, and that would be an emergency closure situation where staff could, you know, then obviously be sent home because it's a unforeseen emergency, and the obligation then would be, of course, to still pay them, but then you have the opportunity to go home. So really just clarifying that language and making it clear to staff which is covered under which specific instance. So these were existing policies, and part of the goal too for when I got here, and we're still doing it, is to clean up all those policies, getting language where things are ambiguous, cleaned up, streamlined. And so that's been a big part of the process here, and we'll continue to dig on the other policies and or procedures that are behind the scenes with staff to make sure it's cleaned up.
Well, I've also just noticed, because there's been this trend, you know, there's been this concerted effort to do a few of them at a time.
Yeah.
Is the rerouting of the language from shall nots to, you know, being positive and proactive, and certainly with an equity lens, I would imagine there too.
Correct.
As we work through this.
And I do think it is important with policies that, I mean, when you write them or when you modify them, you think you're as clear as you possibly can be.
Yeah.
Time goes on, things change, and people interpret things different. So then you always have to continuously come back and review these, you know, over time. And so I think that's really important to stay current and make sure that you're as clear as possible for today's world.
Any more discussion on this policy?
I move to accept the emergency closure library policy.
With the hand motion, I'm like,
Motion in it.
second, all in favor of approving this policy, say aye. Aye. Policy passes, approval passes. Great, that was the quick business of our new business. The remaining item on the agenda is to note our last final regular meeting of 2022, which will be Tuesday, December 20th at 5:30, preceded by a strategic and long range planning committee meeting. We acknowledged this earlier. Sue is transitioning out, so she will be with us in December, but she did attend our last finance committee meeting, and she was our lead to read all the policies, so be thinking about that as, as one of the committee, as one of the committees. For sure. So, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for following along and joining us this evening.
I'm disappointed in you.
Yeah.